Alright guys, so a little Thor's Day update here. And yeah. Andaman's coming through strong. I really can't keep silent about this, so yeah. It's a day to take note of in the US. We've had days like it. I think we've gotten used to it. When our young people are out protesting war, they're out there in public saying enough is enough. Now, are there some of them who are probably saying things that I don't agree with? I'm sure. But that's what we call free speech, right? These protest movements against war, against what's happening over in the Middle East especially, but I mean, let's lump in Ukraine as well, right? The United States finds it very easy to send billions of dollars at a time, like tens of billions of dollars at a time, around the world to help drop bombs, hurting a lot of innocent people. That's what's being protested by most of these students. That's what they're against, most of them. That's the main message. And today, that has been military police actions to put that down. It's the same thing that happened back in the Occupy days. Remember Occupy Wall Street? We had Occupy Oakland, was put down violently. And it's always by picking out a couple of bad actors in a movement and using that to justify silencing the whole thing. That's what's going on. I couldn't not speak about this today. I've tried not to. There's noises around me as if I'm not. No, you're not supposed to get this out, but I am. Andaman's clear about this. No, this is not a day to be silent. And you know, there's a lot of sort of big talk in this country about things like we don't have, real men anymore. Okay, well, if we do have real men, they ought to be out there standing in the way when our kids, our children, college students are still kids. I used to teach them. They're kids. But they're not wrong. They see things. They ought to be listened to. And they're expressing what the bulk of the country thinks. And then they get thrown down, tossed out, treated like criminals, when what they're really doing is exercising their right to speak up. So, where are the men? You want to be a man? You want to be tough? Now, the truth is, most of us who would do that are just trying to get by day by day. We don't feel like we have a lot of extra time, most of us. A lot of us are struggling. And that's the truth. Same for women, same for however you want to identify yourself. It's not about gender or biological sex. But I bring that out because there's a lot of big talk in this country. And yet when the chips are down and our kids are out there, okay, where's the big talkers? When are we going to really stand up for what matters? It's an opportunity point right now. And I'm not saying a bunch of people should, go get your guns. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being physically in the gap. And I don't actually know what the state on the ground is. I imagine these protest movements have been completely cleared out at this point. The opportunity's probably gone. There were people there given orders who carried out those orders. Shame on them. Shame on them. But shame more on the leaders. The leaders that made these decisions leading up to and including today. This, don't get me wrong, this is not me threatening anyone or suggesting that anyone should be threatened with bodily harm. But I'm going to say to those leaders, you're not going to be leading very much longer. You won't be. Because that's what's coming. Not violence, but change. Much like with Occupy Wall Street, and that you can call that the whole Occupy movement. You can look at it and say it was not successful. You can look at it that way, but that's not the case, because what it did is it exposed a reality about finances, banking, and housing in this country that everyone knows now. And it's only gotten worse since then. It hasn't gotten better. It hasn't gotten better. All those problems are still here, and we all see it. Most of us see it. Most of us have been affected by it. Now, this is a new level of that. It's a little different focus. Focus on the war machine. You can see when these things get thrown down and shouted down officially, something's not right. Something's not right. It stinks. And that's the point of it. The point isn't, oh, well, the students were naive, and of course this would happen. No, that's not the point. That's not the point. The point is, the reality got pointed out. This country's entire workforce, and everyone in it, we are used in a machine that we don't have a say over, we don't agree with, and we want it to change. That's what the majority thinks. And the political process just steamrolls us ahead, because we just get choices between this person or that person, who at the end of the day, most of them are just going to support the war machine. Well, it's all there now. Can't deny it. Can't deny it. And this isn't a Trump versus Biden thing. Everything we're seeing right now happen in the world, much of the groundwork of that was laid during the Trump's years in office. And here we have the other side just pushing it along. It's all the same. It's all the same. So yeah, don't get snookered by the us versus them part of this. I guess that's one of the main messages coming out. And yeah, the other messages, these leaders are exposed. We can see what they're really about, what they're really for. And okay, so why am I talking about this? Andaman says, well, you need to address that. Because most of my messages are about quote-unquote spiritual matters. And yet, as I've talked about before, on everything that I put out, what is the spiritual if not deciding what things mean? And that's what this is about. What we've seen today with how these protesters, these students, have been treated, and the message ignored, how it's been thrown down, that means something. That's cards being laid out on the table. That's what that is. Can't deny it. Can't deny it. It's not a mistake. It's not, well, we're just a dumb leader. No, it's intentional. I've known for a long time, something I learned working for a big old Fortune 500 company, we all need to, we need to bend over for them, all the big companies, otherwise we won't have jobs, right? I've lived in that. I understand it. I've seen it. On the ground, so many stupid decisions being made. And what you start to realize is that sometimes the worst decisions are the most revealing. Because when the chips are down, and this is the decision that gets made, this is how we're going to deal with things. Okay, that wasn't an accident. It was stupid. It was dumb. Very dumb. As others have pointed out, it's almost the end of the college school year. Should have just let this run out. Probably most of those people would have gone home. Maybe not. Maybe they would have stayed. Maybe they had more commitment than that. My hunch is maybe they did. But in any case, that would have been a smarter move. On the surface of it. But the cards have been revealed. And what it says is the powers behind the leaders. The leaders are just stooges, guys. They're not in charge. If I'm really powerful, I don't want to get my hands dirty with actually running things. Why would I do that? No. The visible leadership are not truly making the decisions. They're given options. They're given leeway. They're allowed to do their thing, to have their programs, just so far. I know what happens in the college system. Okay? For what happened to happen at the highest levels of these schools, a president of these schools had to be okay with the response that happened. And not only okay, I guarantee you they felt extremely pressured to make those decisions. And they did not stand up to people against it. Those are, for some of us, those are your children out there. Getting treated that way. Not being listened to. Their free speech taken away. Why? Because somebody's worried. Somebody's worried. Because a lot of us are not happy with the way things are going. So many of us are unhappy on every possible side of the political spectrum. There's a very big danger that we're all going to come together. That's what this is about. This is a preemptive move to keep that from happening. And that tells us something. These students put their finger on a pressure point. They're right on. They put their finger on a pressure point and they're right on. So where are the rest of us? What are we doing? It's going to be a point. It's going to be a time. I've been saying this all year. I don't think this was it. I think this is a wake-up call so that we're ready for the point, for the time. There's going to be a time. Yeah. It's not for me to say. I'm just sort of reading the tea leaves here. What do things mean? Where are things headed? It's time for the most of us, as many of us as possible, to grow up. Stop being children. Stop being swayed by the us versus them political charade. As we do that, because I know we get caught into it because we think, well, we either get caught up into it and we pick a side and we get so righteously angry against the other side. Nothing ever happens because we're divided evenly down the middle and all of our energy is channeled into what eventually happens, which is a war. That's pretty much what eventually happens, right? Or we get a financial crisis, or whatever it is, right? We get a new technology that disrupts everything and we lose a bunch of jobs. But then we overdo that, and after a period of profitability, look up the dot-com bubble. If you didn't live through it, if you're too young for that, look it up. Also happened with toasters and wash machines back in the day, way back in the day. The whole thing collapses and we have a cycle of this. It's called poor leadership. It's called insanity. It's called no one's actually running this thing. The thing is kind of running itself. And yet we do have people pulling levers, pushing buttons, trying to get their own way. And it's not very many of us who are at that level. And at some point, if enough of us just say enough is enough, the opportunity is going to be there. I'm not saying what it's going to look like. I'm not saying what it should look like. I'm not saying we need to overthrow the government. I'm not saying we need to do this or that or the other thing. I don't know. That's decided collectively. It's not decided by one person. But what I'm saying is, a point's coming. A point is coming this year. And I'm not talking about the 2024 election. It's not what I'm talking about. Point is coming this year. And I'm not saying there's going to be some super successful protest movement. There might be a super vocal one. There might be a widespread one. It may look like it fails on the surface of it. But what looks like failure in the media, and according to government and all these types of things, isn't always failure. Doesn't mean you don't do it. Doesn't mean we don't act. Doesn't mean we don't respond. There's a lot of things that people disagree over that gets used to divide us. And so the message right now is to really start to look at that. What keeps me from standing in a crowd with that other person that I normally don't agree with, but actually we agree about a whole lot? What keeps me from doing that? What keeps me able from doing that? That is the gulf that must be traversed from all sides. So yeah, Thor's Day update. Very much about politics. Just to put all my cards on the table, I used to be a union thug. I used to be a union organizer. And what I saw is people get kept divided because they stay children. And they get their little petty little feelings hurt. And they get out of the game. Get in the game. It's Thor's Day. If you don't know about Thor, like the Norse Thor, the mythological Thor, he doesn't back down from a challenge. He jumps in there. When something's not right, he puts his hammer down. Sometimes he does so stupidly. But you know what? With these things, we need more energy and less worrying about exactly what we should do and how we should go about it. That's paralysis. Sometimes it's better to respond and do something. Now, don't be stupid. I'm not saying we should be stupid. I'm not saying we should fly off the handle. Because that's also childish, right? But again, time's coming. Be prepared. That's what I'm saying. That's about all I'm saying. This has been Jared Randall with Andaman saying, you will talk about these things today. And yeah, sending all kinds of light, peace, and love your way right now.